And if you turn to chapter 4, you'll see that there's another instance here when John says that he was in the Spirit. Chapter 4 this time. I'm not going to go into detail. After these things I looked, and behold, a door standing open in heaven. And the first voice which I heard was like a trumpet speaking with me, saying, Come up here, and I will show you things which must take place afterwards. Immediately I was in the Spirit, and behold, a throne set in heaven. I don't know whether you have ever read these things and thought, this is really sort of quite unusual. If you heard a voice behind you and turned round, wouldn't the first thing that you saw be the person that just spoke to you? Mm-hmm. But that is what happened to John. When he turned around, the first thing that he saw was 7 lampstands. Here in chapter 4, when he sees heaven open, he would have said, surely the first thing he'll see is God in all his glory. No, the first thing he sees is a throne. Because these are settings for revelation. These are ways in which God is preparing his heart to see some things. I said I wouldn't go into detail into the book of Revelation, but there's a very easy, simple summary of the book of Revelation that you probably learned at Sunday school if you're old enough. The whole of the book of the Revelation can be summed up in this little phrase: God is still on the throne. That's what it's all about. God is still on the throne. John, the man that God trusted this to, had lost everything. He had lost the city that he was familiar with. Jerusalem had been destroyed by the Roman emperor. He lost the temple that he seems to have had some kind of link to. John was known, it tells us in John's Gospel, to the family of the high priest. Some people have surmised possibly he was from a Levitical family. We really don't know, but there's some kind of connection. He'd lost so much. He'd lost all the familiar faces of his youth. He'd lost his nation, effectively. The priesthood was gone. The temple was gone. All the other apostles was gone. This man's the last to swallow up the sun. He's in probably his 90s when he writes this. Now it looked from his position as though even the amazing victories of the church were beginning to go. John and Peter and Paul all predict a time when there will come a declension upon the church. And you see it in the last letters of Paul, you see it in the letters of John, and it has begun. And if you see the things that Jesus says to the churches of the Revelation, you'll see how seriously things have already begun to take place. It seemed to John as though everything that he had known, all the safe places, all the reference points, all the scenes in which he'd seen the revelation of the character of Jesus Christ, all the places that were familiar to him, which would have reminded him of God's power and God's goodness, they were all gone. All gone. And if that isn't enough now, the Romans apparently put him under some kind of house arrest on the Isle of Patmos. And it must have seemed as though the whole thing was falling to pieces. That the whole world is just in a massive slide, and all his life has been for nothing, and all the things he spent his life doing seem to have come from nothing, and here he is on the Isle of Patmos, and God gives him a revelation that in heaven there is a throne, and there's someone who sits on it, and will always sit on it. And it doesn't matter what circumstances are taking place on earth, always in the heavens there is a throne, and there's one sits on it. He needs this. We need this. We need this. We need that revelation. We need that insight to our God-conscious spirits that God sits upon the throne. That whatever our heart's longing are for revival, and however we may view the affairs of the nations around us and see the massive slide that things have got into, we need this revelation, brothers and sisters. In the heavens there is a throne. And someone sits on it. And whatever happens down here, that does not change. It's amazing as John sees this revelation. To begin with, he sees the one who sits upon the throne. And there isn't a particular description given of him. But when you move into chapter 5, you get this amazing thing. You see that the person who sits on the throne has in his hand a scroll that is written on both sides. It's absolutely packed full with information, but it's all locked up because it's sealed with 7 seals, and there's no one who's worthy to open it. And he weeps much. He's broken-hearted. It almost seems as though all the plans and the purposes of God are going to be frustrated. It's all locked up in this scroll. And as he weeps, one of the elders says, "Come and see. Come and see the Lion of the tribe of Judah." And I don't know what he was expecting, but he comes and he looks and he sees in the midst of the throne a lamb standing, as though it has been slain. You know, chapter 5. Verse 5. But one of the elders said to me, "Do not weep. Behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, has prevailed to open the scroll and to loose its 7 seals." And I looked, and behold, in the midst of the throne and of the 4 living creatures, and then in the midst of the elders stood a lamb, as though it had been slain, having 7 horns and 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits of God sent out in all the earth. Then he came and took the scroll out of the right hand of him who sat upon the throne. And I'm not going to open any of the seals for you, but you're hoping yourself. But what is this signifying? Well, John needed to see that there was a throne, that things would have control, that things hadn't slipped from the God of God, that things were not descending into some kind of aimless chaos. He needed to see that there was someone on the throne, and he needed to see that the one who sat upon the throne was his own dear lamb. That's to say, that isn't a kind of a mushy, sentimental statement. It just signifies that this lamb is familiar to John. He knows, for instance. This is a lamb which has passed through death and is now standing in the throne. And in the vision, he sees that the lamb has 7 horns and 7 eyes. And there's a deep significance in all this, because you probably know that in kind of Hebrew symbolism, horns are a picture of power. And 7 is the number of completeness. So he sees someone upon the throne who has complete power. He has 7 horns. He has all power. But not only does he have 7 horns, he has 7 eyes. And 7 eyes are symbolic of knowledge and wisdom and understanding. The one who sits upon the throne not only has all power, he knows all things. There's nothing that creeps past him. And if you think about it, this is really a wonderful composite picture. Simply because of this. I hope you can follow this, and my English accent isn't confusing you folks from America or from Scotland. If you can see this, if the Lamb upon the throne, please don't be offended by what I'm going to say. If the Lamb upon the throne has only 6 horns and 7 eyes, you might say, well, yes, he knows all things, but he doesn't have all power. He may know everything, but there are some things he can't do. He may know I need, but he can't possibly, this is in the area where he doesn't have the power to do anything about my need. So it won't do to have 6 horns and 7 eyes. And if you turn it around, it doesn't work the other way either. If we say he has 7 horns, that's to say he has all power, but he only has 6 eyes, then it may be that although he has all power, there are things he doesn't know about. So he has to have 7 horns and 7 eyes. In other words, he has all power and all knowledge. There's a wonderful old Wesley hymn that has a line in it which says, "And all the attributes divine are now at work for me." In other words, the one who reigns upon the throne is the one who has our names written on his hands. He's the one who has passed through death for us. He's the one who has all power, who has all knowledge, and he reigns. And John needed to see that. And the rest of the book of the Revelation unfolds as it does, with that constant thing. Everything is relative to the throne. Kind of a quick tip. You go through the book of the Revelation. Things are around the throne, or they're over the throne, or they're under the throne, or they're in the throne, or they're out of the throne. The throne is the point of reference, because God is still on the throne. But that isn't actually the first revelation that John sees. The first revelation that John sees, you'll find in chapter 1, back to verse 12. And then I turned, he says, in the Spirit on the day of the Lord, that I turned to see the voice that spake with me, and having turned, I saw 7 golden lampstands. And in the midst of the 7 lampstands, one like the Son of Man, clothed with a garment down to the feet. That tells you he's either a king or a priest. Only kings and priests have garments right down to the feet in this way. A garment clothed down to the feet and girded about the chest with a golden band. His head and his hair were white like wool and white as snow, and his eyes like a flame of fire. His feet were like fine brass, as if refined in a furnace, and his voice as the sound of many waters. And in his right hand were 7 stars. Out of his mouth went forth a sharp 2-edged sword, and his face was like the sun shining in the strength. And when I saw him, I felt as he was dead. But he laid his right hand on me, saying to me, do not be afraid. I am the first and the last. I am he who lives and was dead, and behold, I am alive forevermore. Amen. And I have the keys of Hades and of death. Write the things which you have seen. He actually hasn't seen very much yet, if you think about it. But it's to write the things that he has seen. Because what he has just seen is going to be of very great significance for what follows. Write the things which you have seen, and the things which are, and the things which will take place after this. The mystery of the 7 stars which you saw in my right hand, and the 7 golden lampstands. The 7 stars are the messengers of the 7 churches, and the 7 lampstands which you saw are the 7 churches. We'll pause just for a moment. I come, for the last 30 years or so, I've been involved mostly in kind of house church movement, so I do not think in terms of pulpits, pews and pastors. What the things that I say, please don't immediately put it into your particular hierarchy of the denomination you're part of. I want to talk very briefly about these messengers. Some people say they're angels, they're kind of like ruling spirits in particular areas. I just prefer to think of them in terms of messengers. They're the messengers of the churches, and God is going to give to these messengers messages that they are responsible for getting to the churches. And this is really very significant. This is kind of part of my theology in the sense of revival. And I don't want to bore you with it or burden you with it, but I want to explain it, and it's this. Sometimes often you'll hear people talk, and they will use the terminology of the church, and they will say, the trouble with the church in America is this, or the church of the 21st century is like this, or the church in Vietnam is like this.